welcome to today's episode of the Quarterback's Room. We got a pretty special program for you today. First of all, the college football playoffs are tonight, so we want to get this out as soon as possible. We're going to talk a little bit about that, what our predictions are for the game, and kind of what we're looking at. But we're also going to do a deep dive into footballs. So I want to teach you how to look at every football and what football meets your needs. So everything from the type of material that's in it to the size to the brands, we're going to discuss it all. And hopefully it'll be educational for you and you can learn a little bit that you didn't know about footballs, to be honest. And with that, we kind of want to remind you that the Quarterback's Room is brought to you by Florida Football Prep. For all your football needs, everything from team gear to top-notch training with the Jake Medlock Passing Academy and CDR Elite Speed and Agility Training. We also have something called Team FFP, or Florida Football Prep. So that is a free team, basically, where you sign up, you get free swag, you get a free elite training where you can sign up for events. It's a great deal, and it doesn't cost you anything. So go to www.floridafootballprep today and sign up for Team FFP and check out our shop. We've got some pretty cool shirts, including like the one Miles is wearing today, the No Excuses shirt. So join us there and take a look at what we have for you. Also, just a reminder to go to iTunes, to Spotify, to YouTube, subscribe, give us those 5-star reviews. They mean everything in the world for us. It'd be great to help us keep going. This is our 11th episode. We're very proud of that. So we've busted the 10-episode barrier. And it's been kind of an interesting ride so far. What do you think, Miles?
Yeah, I think
You've been having fun?
It's been an interesting season.
You've been having fun?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the college football playoffs. Now, you've already made your prediction.
Yeah.
You say
27-24 Ohio State.
27-24 Ohio State. So when I look at it, I kind of sit there and go, all the parameters, all the skill, everything points to Ohio State winning. But I'm not so sure. And I say that because I think that Marcus Freeman overall is a better coach than Ryan Day. What do you think?
Yeah, he is.
So how much do you put on coaching when it comes to winning a game? Because we've seen that at the college level time and again, where frankly, one team has more skill, has better players, but is simply outcoached by a lesser team. And I would point to when Notre Dame lost to NIU. I think that, quite frankly, they were outcoached. They came in, they were lackadaisical. They didn't think about what they were doing. They kind of were looking past them. So NIU came in with a great game plan, and they beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. And I would say the same thing is probably very similar to what Michigan did when they came into the Horseshoe and beat freaking Ohio State. And what do you think?
Yeah.
So Ryan Day, the biggest thing about Ryan Day, if you look at all the Ohio State Buckeye fans, they're always talking about he can't win the big game. And if you look at what they've done in the past, Ohio State's been in the college football playoffs under Ryan Day 2 times. The first time they lost in the first game, and the second time they made it to the final, and they lost to Alabama, I think, pretty handily. They've missed the college football playoffs 2 years. They have they've won 2 Big Ten championships, and both those times again they went to CFP and they lost. So the fans at Ohio State are getting kind of fed up with Ryan Day, and I'll tell you what. You give me a coach that's going to give me 10, 11 wins a year, I'll take him any day. But at the same time, it's Ohio State, and Ohio State wants to win. Yeah. But will Ohio State win the big game? Can they win the big game?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. My gut is telling me that Notre Dame's going to pull this out and they're going to win, because I remember a story back in the day when UCF football was playing against Baylor. I think it was the 2013 Fiesta Bowl. And they were playing against Baylor, and Baylor had lost one game that season. Baylor was, I think, favored by like 2-3 touchdowns to win that game. George O'Leary was the head coach at UCF at the time. Do you know what George O'Leary did to win that game?
No.
George O'Leary said, okay, who beat Baylor that year? It was Oklahoma State. He said, well, what did Oklahoma State do? Well, we'll just do what they did. And that's what UCF did. And they beat pretty handily. They beat Baylor. And it was kind of a lesson in coaching, where sometimes if you just do the easy things and you do fundamentals well, you're going to win the game. All right. It goes back to the mantra of what is one of my mantras when it comes to, I say before every game, want to know every week, right?
Yeah.
We focus on winning that week. Don't look past it. Don't look back. It's all about 1-0. It's all about winning the game at hand. And that's kind of, and I got to say, I stole that. That was a big Josh Heupel thing. And so I stole that from him, and all credit to Coach Heupel. Great guy, by the way. If anybody's ever met him, I really, really respect him. So I think that Notre Dame could pull an upset and win this game. But so your final chance, your prediction is still Ohio State?
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think is going to be the dominant player?
Probably Will Howard.
You think Howard's going to step up?
Yeah.
All right. So we will see what happens. Also, so now you've been playing sevens. You started practices for sevens in December. And you had your first scrimmage just last weekend.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
We beat 12U 21-0, or it was 28-0.
You sure it was 28-0?
I think so, yeah.
So if you don't know, so seven's a little different than flag, and it's kind of, a lot of players will play that in preparation of playing in the fall tackle season. And Miles is on the 11U team, and they played the 12U team. It was pretty impressive, dominant win. I think the defense really stepped up. How many interceptions did the defense have?
5 or 6.
It was 6. I think 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them were pick sixes.
Yeah.
And I actually, it was just kind of interesting to watch. And I'll tell you guys, if you want to watch football in its purest form, watch youth football. Because these kids are playing not for money, not for anything. They're playing for themselves and for their team. They're just out there having fun. So youth football is a fantastic thing to do. That being said, so I want to go ahead and get ready, and we're going to transition. We're going to give you a in-depth look at our studio, and not studio, excuse me, our workshop, and you can check that out, and we're going to go over footballs. Today, we're going to talk about what?
Footballs.
Footballs. What's good, what's bad, what kind of football you need for your beginning player all the way to your advanced. Whether it's a youth player or a high schooler getting ready to college, we're going to look at what you should be getting for a football for your player. Whether it's a size, whether it's the type of material, we're going to tell you what's best for you. So without further ado, we want to welcome you into the first ever tour of the Florida Football Prep Workshop. Welcome to our shop. So what we wanted to do was to show you what we consider good footballs and what we consider bad footballs. So we're going to start bad to good. And with that, Miles, you want to hand me the first ball? So this is a Wilson rubber football. Now, Miles, what is this good for?
The beach.
So the beach, throwing around with friends, that kind of thing. This is not the kind of football you want to purchase if you're going to be a serious player and you're going to go playing flag football, 7-on-7, or whatever you're going to do. So, All right, let's go with number 2. This is considered a composite leather football. It'll say leather, and it'll say composite leather. What does that mean? That means that this ball initially will feel pretty good, but it's also probably not official weight. A lot of times they'll say official size, but they won't say official weight. So be on the lookout for that. This is not leather, it is composite leather. When you first buy it, it feels pretty good, right, Miles?
Yeah.
It feels pretty good, but what happens after you've had it for a little while? It turns kind of slick, right? Or at a certain point, they get pretty tore up. And with a composite ball, there's nothing you can do about it. So once it's tore up and once it gets slippery, it goes in the trash. All right, so last but not least, the ball that is our preference and what you want to use is a leather football, okay? And a good leather football. We'll go a little bit more into that in a second. But when you're looking at a good leather football, they will last a very long time. They can be repaired if they get scuffed up or damaged. You can put a little bit of a conditioner on it and the ball will be like new. This ball is a brand new one that's ready to go from Florida Football Prep that's been already prepared for it. But these are the best balls to use. And the preference is either a GST or a Nike Elite are the best balls on the market to use for your youth player. Okay, so we already talked about the different types of footballs, the rubber, the composite, and the leather footballs. Now we want to talk a little bit about the different types of leather footballs you might find. So, Miles, when you're going to the store and you're looking at the different types of leather footballs, especially the Wilson GSTs, which are the predominant balls in the market, what are we looking for?
USA balls and Vietnam balls.
So what do you think is the difference as a quarterback when it comes to throwing a USA versus a Vietnam-made football?
The USA ball has way better laces, and it's embroidered on the ball instead of printed on there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you look at it. So when you go to the store, you'll find basically 2 balls at the store. So if you go to Dick's or you go to Academy, they'll have 2 different types of footballs. One usually will be a Wilson made in the USA ball, like what Miles is holding, all right, or a made in Vietnam. That's what you always want to look for. If it says made in Vietnam, do not buy that football. Frankly, the decals or the lettering is all decals, and it doesn't hold up well. Whereas if you look at the made in USA ball, it's all embossed directly on the ball. The laces are closer together on the Vietnam ball, so it's a little less, the quarterback can't get quite as good a grip on it. And quite frankly, the leather doesn't hold up as well. So when it goes to getting the proper football, when you go to the store, avoid made in Vietnam. Now, one way to guarantee you get the made in USA ball is to go to Wilson directly on the Wilson store online, order from there, and you are guaranteed to get a made in the USA ball. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the different types of footballs you might want to get, from the rubber, composite, to a leather football. Then we talked a little bit about leather footballs and whether you want to buy the Vietnam ball or the made in USA ball. Now we want to talk a little bit about sizing. So now, when you're first starting out, and your athlete is, for instance, kindergarten, you want to start with what's called the Pee Wee football. So this is a Pee Wee football. This is a Wilson K2. All right, you can buy these. You can use the composite footballs for at that level relatively easily. They're pretty predominant. But this is a Wilson K2. Now, this was Miles's football when he first started out. And as you can see, when I talked about leather balls holding up, this has held up. Okay, so this is a solid football still to this date. And once you hit 9 years old, you will then transition to what's called a TDJ ball. This is a TDJ ball, or a junior size football. Okay, you can kind of see the difference in size. All right, this is a little bit bigger, and it's made for bigger hands. And you will use this football between the ages of 9 and 12 years old. So for instance, Miles is playing 11U football right now, right?
Yep.
So at 11U level, they play with this size football. Okay. Now hand me a Y.
Once you hit 12 years old, you will change to what's called a TDY football, okay? And you can see the size difference is a little bit more, but it's still there. It's a little bit wider, it's a little bit bigger, but this is a TDY ball, and this is for ages 12 to 14. So you would use this on 12U and for 13U and 14U football if you're playing at that level. Okay, and then when you finish playing at that level, last but not least, you get the collegiate sized football. Okay, so this is the last football. This goes from high school through college. This is the correct size football. Now, Wilson makes the GST. They also make an Omega football and a few other variants. But also, Nike is got a lot of footballs, especially at the collegiate level. And they all are kind of an official size and weight. Nike balls vary a little bit. But right now, for the most part, especially in high school level, the Wilson football, the Wilson GST is the standard. So with that being said, we've talked about now the different materials of the football. We've talked about different types of leather footballs. And now we've discussed the sizes of footballs and what you need depending on the age of your athlete. So we've talked about the different materials of footballs. We've talked about the different types of leather footballs. We talked about the different sizes of footballs. But now we want to talk a little bit about variation of balls you can buy. So at the advanced level in high school, we already talked about the GST football. This is the standard NCAA high school football that is used pretty much throughout the nation. Now, some colleges use it. Some colleges prefer the Nike ball, which we'll get to in a second. But this has kind of been the gold standard for some time. So Wilson, trying to improve on their balls, created the Omega football. Now, the Omega football is a variation of the GST, but with different weighting and different laces and stitching, it is supposed to throw a tighter and better spiral. Now, granted, I'm not 100% sure. They show the data on it, but I haven't actually seen much of a difference. I can tell you when you're prepping this football, which we'll get into later, but if you're doing conditioning and prepping of the football, this thing is a bear to do. Anyway, with that being said, let's look at the Nike ball. Now, we were talking about a lot of the colleges and universities use a Nike ball. And if you're watching TV and watching your favorite college playing football, there's a pretty good chance if they're wearing Nike uniforms, they're playing with a Nike football. Now, this is a Nike Vapor Elite. Some schools use a Vapor 1. There's a few different variations of that. But this is the ball. This is actually a UCF game ball from a couple years ago. But Nike builds a pretty good football, and a lot of people like them. So, and last but not least, once you graduate college, you hope to play in the NFL. So if you're playing in the NFL, you're going to use the Duke football. And this has been a pretty standard football for quite some time. It is essentially a GST football without the striping, and it should be still the official size and weight. Miles, hand me the GST. So if you're looking at a GST compared to a NFL ball, you probably won't see much difference at all if you're looking at it from the back. But those are your differences between those balls. Miles, of these four balls, if you had to pick one to throw today, which one are you picking?
GST.
Why the GST?
It just feels better off my hands.
So there you go. And really a lot of that comes to it. If your quarterback is more comfortable throwing a GST, play with a GST. If your quarterback's better throwing a Nike, play with a Nike. All right. It's basically the type of ball that your athlete prefers. Okay. Last but not least for today, I want to talk briefly about having a properly conditioned, properly prepped football. Okay. Now, Miles is holding a brand new GST straight out of the box. All right. This is what the ball looks like when you buy it out of the box. It almost looks orange. Am I right?
Yeah.
So this is the exact same football that has gone through the prepping process. This is also a brand new football, but it's been conditioned and it is game ready. Now, Miles, Feel that one, and feel this one. Which one you playing with? This is why you prepare a football. In our next video, I'm going to go through the process, step by step, on how we at Florida Football Prep prepare our footballs to make them game ready.
Well, we hope you liked the expose into footballs. You learned a little bit about how the different materials are, the different types of footballs, the different sizes, and maybe you can get the right one for your student athlete or for your athlete, and the different variations of brands. So, Miles, which one is your favorite ball to throw?
A GST.
Why the GST?
It just feels way better coming off my hands, and I think it's easier to throw a spiral with.
You know what's really funny is that your very first GST was a K2 that I'd bought you, and you couldn't throw that thing to save your life. It was so funny, and it's a hard ball to throw to get used to. If you've been throwing the composites or the Nike composites, going to a leather GST that's official size and weight is a big change, and it can take a little bit of adjustment. So we hope you learned something about them, and we enjoyed showing you that. Now, next week, we're going to try to do a full football conditioning / preparation process and show you what goes into taking a ball from brand new out of the box to getting it game ready. So please take a look then. It should be some educational stuff for y'all. It's a lot of work. It takes about a week per ball. So just a reminder that Florida Football Prep will do that for you. If you buy a brand new leather ball, send it in to them. They will prepare that ball, or you can buy footballs that are already done, or they'll purchase it for you and do it, and then you just pay that price plus the fee for doing the conditioning. So hopefully we can show you something you'll learn again next week. With that, until we see you again, thank you for joining us in the quarterback's room.